hour of 10 having arrived, I call to order this meeting of the City of Keene Minor Project Review Committee. Megan, can you please call the roll?
This is Megan Fortson, planning technician. For roll call, Don Lucier,
Here.
Court Blomquist, Jesse Rounds,
Here.
Mary Brunner,
Here.
John Rogers, Mike Hagan,
Here.
Don Farquhar,
Present.
Steve Dumont Sr., Med Kopczynski.
I am here.
Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to remind staff to please use your microphones when you speak so that the minute taker can have a clear audio for the minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I believe both Mike Hagan and I are alternates who are present, and so one of us should be participating as a voting member today. I would suggest Mike as a replacement for John. Yeah.
So do we have to make a motion to do that, or can I just say Mike?
Nope, you as the chair can just bring him in as a voting member.
All right. Mike, I guess you get to be a voting member today. And that makes quorum, so, okay, great. Okay, next order of business, minutes from the previous meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the January 26th, 2023 and February 2nd, 2023 meetings?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Can I get a second?
I'll second. Michael Hagan.
Discussion, corrections, anything like that? All right, seeing none, can we get a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous. All right. Do we have any final votes on conditional approvals?
There are no final votes on conditional approvals for today's meeting.
Great. All right, so now we're moving into the public hearing phase. And I will attempt to remember the rules here, but basically we're going to have a presentation from the applicant, and then anyone from the public can speak on that. After that, I'll open the public hearing, and then if no one, once that's done, I'll close it. Then we'll have discussion following that. So the public hearing, and I believe I have to read the whole, all right. So SPR 0619, modification number 1, site plan for 20 Manchester Street. Applicant and owner 560 Main Street LLC proposes to lease a portion of the Froling site at 20 Manchester Street, tax map number 114-012-000 to Phil's Tree Service for equipment and truck storage, create a second open yard rental space, construct an addition of approximately 3,750 square feet in size to an already approved 10,000 square foot building, and make minor modifications to the landscaping and parking to the property is 9.88 acres in size and is located in the industrial district. All right, do we have a presentation? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mary.
I believe we need a motion on
Oh,
application completeness.
Completeness, yes. Is the application complete, Megan?
This is Megan Fortson, planning technician. The applicant has not requested any exemptions as part of this application. Staff recommends that the committee accept the application as complete.
All right. Is there a motion on application completeness?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Okay. So then I guess we are going to, presentation now from the applicant. And I think, you can either go to the standing microphone or the seat, whatever works for you.
All right, I'll go to the standing microphone. So I'm Ethan Waterman here with Froling Energy today. Try to bear with me a little bit because I haven't done this before, so any questions, feel free to ask me. Like you said, we're just looking to improve and move forward with the phase 2 of our project. That's what we've been calling it. On that building that we have across the street from what we already have, the biggest change for sure is that addition. We're looking to put a 3-sided lean-to on the one side for some indoor wood processing. That is definitely the biggest change. Other than that, the building itself is still gonna be the same layout. One side was gonna be a truck shop before, and one side was going to be an office, and we switched those left to right to make the office more centrally located. But it's the same size as before. The drainage and the pavement layout has been adjusted to accommodate for that and for that addition. Obviously, we have to take out more asphalt and put more in on the left side of that, if you're looking at it, the left side of it where the addition will be. That's on the other side, I'll come back to that. Couple of plantings have been changed location and species. We're gonna put rhododendrons in, make it a little bit more hedge-like. We had some firs there before. Up in the front towards the right when you're looking at it to provide a little bit more cover. Other than that, Tom Willard would be the architect on record. And then on the other side of the street, the other change that we're looking for, our parking was going to be parallel to the curb on the left side of that building, as you can see, and we're looking to make those head-on right there, just for ease of access and people being able to park, so. Other than that, I believe that's all I have for changes. What else are we looking for?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick question. So in your presentation, you mentioned rhododendrons for the
Yeah.
plantings. The plan that we have in our packet shows emerald green arborvitae that have a mature height of between 10 to 15 feet. Could you clarify what you're proposing to put in as screening?
I believe it would be a mix of both. I have to look if you don't mind. And I believe.
I think, and just to clarify, I'm asking about the new landscaping,
Yes.
not the landscaping that was previously approved
Yeah.
by the planning board.
Yeah, if you look over towards, it'd be the right front of it. That's what I would call it, on the new building side, the proposed building. We're going to be putting some more rhododendron cover
Yeah, I
on
think,
that side.
Oh, I see.
I
Okay,
think, yeah,
thank
the
you.
discussion before was about the arborvitae on the old building, the
Yeah,
west side of the old building.
yeah, there's still, because there's still some going over there and planning going on there as well, so sorry for that mix-up.
That's why we're here.
Yes, absolutely.
Any
Um,
other, yeah.
So I just wanted to, I'm not voting tonight, but
Oh, no.
I do think that the addition, I have no concerns about it. I think it fits in really well with the architecture of the building that was approved by the planning board. And then I think the change to the screening around the old building makes a lot of sense. What was proposed before was the balsam fir. And I think the change to the arborvitae would actually provide a better screening for the residential area on Manchester Street. So I'm definitely in favor of those changes. I would definitely like to hear more information about the rental areas that are proposed as part of this application. I think one of them is proposed to be used by Phil's Tree Service, and the other one doesn't have a user sort of identified yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so a couple of things that I'd appreciate it if you could just mention or talk about would be, what do you expect the impervious surface coverage to be for those areas? Do you expect any or minimal, I guess?
For cover from the roadway? or-
On the ground, like, are you gonna be putting temporary structures or?
Yeah, the only temporary structure that we would be asking for is another, like a 12 by 20, either a shed, something around that size, or maybe a job trailer for something they can't store outside, or, in trailers or connexes or something like that.
Okay,
So,
great.
and like I said, or like you said, we're not sure what's gonna be there yet. It would probably be something similar to a Phil's Tree or somebody with trucks and equipment. That would just be an open land use, so just somewhere to put the more valuable things that they can't leave outside or in the weather.
Follow-up question, if I may?
That's what you're showing as. So that's what you're showing as an allowance for a 12 by 20 office structure? But you're not proposing, and you understand that if you wanted to do any paving or permanent structures, you'd have to come back to the city for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And just a quick follow-up to that, do you anticipate any of the rental areas, the uses proposed there needing any sort of lighting, or do you expect that they'll generate any sort of noise that might impact surrounding? I know they're a little bit further
In
away from the rental
future,
areas,
as
but,
far as noise, I don't think we're proposing anything or think of anything unnormal from what's already there with the city trucks going by and our trucks and Phil's trucks and stuff like that already there. No excessive noise beyond that.
great, thank you.
I would make note that the city's trucks are incredibly quiet.
Yes.
I guess I have a sort of process question on the proposed conditions plan. I note that neither the Phil's Tree Service rental area or the proposed rental area are drawn on there, it looks like. Should they be? Anybody?
So we have, one of the plan sheets is the rental area
Yeah.
exhibit. It's not on the overall site plan. I think personally, it makes sense to me to include that on the overall site plan. I think that's a pretty simple
Yeah,
condition of
absolutely.
approval we could place, yeah.
Great,
Mr. Chair, if I may?
of course.
A couple of questions. So I do see where SVE you circled the areas that are changed and put in revision comments. That was very helpful. But on the utility plan, go back to that. It's going to be sheet C5. The sewer line is shown in green, and it appears that they're showing that that's all going to be relayed as part of this project. Can you confirm or deny that the sewer that was included for the phase one needs to be replaced?
I cannot at this time, no.
Okay,
I could get that information, but I don't have that, and I,
yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
The other thing, the water line as it's shown for servicing phase one and also for phase two, shows that you've got your domestic service coming off of the fire service. That's not allowed, so on the phase one side, the 2-inch domestic goes back to the main, which is, in the city's right-of-way.
Yeah.
The same thing is gonna have to happen for phase two, where your
Okay.
domestic service is gonna have to be completely separate from your fire service.
okay.
Okay, so I would like to see the utility plans updated to
Before that,
reflect that.
updated,
Yeah. This is gonna be a material or a vehicle maintenance garage.
Yes.
And I see you have the oil water separator already shown on there. Just more of a comment or a reminder that you will need to talk to the city's industrial pretreatment coordinator
Okay.
to permit that discharge.
Okay.
Because it does need to go through the treatment. Talked about relaying the sewer to Manchester Street. Yeah, and sort of corollary to that is, our records show that the sewer line was stubbed out for future phase two expansion. So if that's the case, then the utility plan should show, coming
That it's
into that stub,
Okay.
not replacing the whole thing. Well, it needs to go to the main. And the other question, again, this is gonna be more of a question for SVE to answer, but it's not clear to me, reading the regulations, whether or not this would qualify as a sewer connection that requires a state permit.
Okay.
State requires DES review permit applications if they need to connect to the existing system at a sewer manhole.
Okay.
I don't know if they're gonna consider that's, a new connection at a sewer manhole, or if you're tying in, so that's
Okay.
something SVE, I think, should opine on.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, if I might?
Of course.
Okay. I got a couple things. The parking in front, are you doing curbing? Before it showed a curbing with a sidewalk, now you're just doing the parking in front of the building, so you'll need to provide
On
curb stops
the updated on the left side?
on the Phase 2 building?
Okay. I do not believe there's gonna be any curbing there. I think it's going to be.
Okay, so you're going to provide, update the plans to provide a vehicle barrier of some sort?
Yes.
So, okay. What's the overall height of the building?
I do not know the overall height.
because comes into play with fire department access.
Yeah.
And ladder truck size and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Your size of the building and depending upon the use of that cordwood storage area will also require a sprinkler system with fire department access
Okay.
on the front of that. So just question where that is, where you're putting it in. Typically on a site plan, you would show that.
Okay.
So we would need to see that
Okay.
information. As well as I got a question on, this has kind of changed from what it was to what it's being used for now. Before it was just vehicles to support the use of Froling.
Yeah.
Is this a separate entity or is this like Froling headquarters?
This is just Froling.
Okay.
It's the only vehicles that'll be there.
So question on that would be, on the plan, on the floor plan, you show showroom area?
Yep.
What are we showing?
Well, I would put probably a couple boilers in there. Our boilers are really large that we sell.
Okay,
Not running, just boilers on that and
Okay,
possibly
so-
some auger setups and,
so you would have people coming in and out for retail purchasing of that?
well, we do such little retail that it'd be more just a commercial person could come in and see possibly a setup.
So it is.
Yes, there'd be
it's-
some
it's
in and out. I
Open
wouldn't
to the
call it-
public, okay.
And I do not know that it would be totally open to the public or by an appointment after talking to somebody and making sure. I don't foresee it being people just coming in off the streets and looking in a showroom, but I do not know that for sure.
Sure, so in order to make sure that you're falling within the permitted uses in that zone and that it's an accessory use to the main, we definitely want a letter or description
Yes.
of what the intended uses are
Okay.
for that. As well as just for, and you can do this after the fact, but it's maybe something to think about now,
Yeah.
depending upon the area and size, you may need a second means of egress off of that second floor.
Okay.
So in order to determine that, we need to know the use, the overall use,
Yeah.
and so that you're not coming back again in front of the board later on to
Yes.
now add that.
To add that.
You could probably add it somewhere, but the current floor plan that you provide there's some question on, you can't egress from that second floor through the retail area.
Yeah.
So getting that directly to the outside with the layout that you have now, so I'm just cautioning you on that, with what you've provided in front of us today.
Yeah, thank you. Getting a letter to clarify that is, probably not problematic in any way, but at least as I understand how Froling services the industries, they're large-scale schools, banks, things like that. So I don't see it being retail by any means, and probably not even residential consumers, but who knows, they could be changing their product line.
And we do some residential, not to interrupt, but it's on a very minimal scale.
Yeah, we've issued a bunch of residential boiler permits,
Yeah.
chip permit
Yes.
boilers in Keene, several actually. So
Yeah.
that's why I asked,
Yep.
if someone wanted to come in and change out their boiler, if this is gonna become, a more intense use,
Yeah.
it's not really, and it can be accessory to the main, but we have to limit the size on that
Yeah.
through the zoning, and that's why clarification would be
Yeah,
helpful.
absolutely. We can get that for sure.
Chief, you have-
To sort of extend Mr. Hagan's earlier comments on use, it appears, are you going to do wood, some processing there? Are you going to take the raw trees and make it into solid fuel? Is your processing component to the proposal?
Yes.
Right, and that's important, because that manufacturing or processing of the trees into solid fuel invokes some pretty intriguing fire code as far as dust control.
Yep.
And then generally speaking, those type of processes are like an H2 as a hazard class. And so we just want to really have a good understanding of exactly the scale of that operation, what that process looks like, and just make sure that at the time of the building permit application, the application properly contemplates and answers that unique hazard class of that process.
Okay.
Any other comments, concerns? Go ahead.
One more comment, and it's really just, to kind of put it on the record, I don't think it's an issue in any way, but just to make sure that everybody's aware. Your access to this site is across an easement on the, I don't think it's Cheshire Tire anymore, but the Cheshire Tire property.
Yes.
Which, that was an
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, just for the record, so that is something that planning staff did ask for documentation, and I believe that Mr. Froling has documented to the satisfaction of city staff that they do have the right to have assignees pass and repass over that easement. So to my understanding, that issue is all fully addressed.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments before we open it up to the public? All right. Thank you very much. Do we have any members of the public who'd wish to address the committee? Come on up. And if you could just state your name and your address for the record. Thanks for coming.
Toby Towsley, 500 Washington Street, Keene, New Hampshire. I don't object to this project at all. I think it's a good use of what's down there. I don't have any issues at all. I do have some questions about the process or the method of doing this. And so as if I was involved in this project, I would be looking at the requirements. And what I see is that this would tip the scale as a going in front of the full planning board. I'm not trying to stop this process, don't get me wrong. That's not my method here. And I'm just asking questions because as somebody, let me back up. That I think we've done a great job. Keene's got a history of the past of not working with businesses very friendly. I think this is a great way to work with this project here. I think we've made some good moves for this. I think we should continue, so I'm not trying to stop that. My questions are, if I was involved with this, I would be reading these and I'm thinking, well, I have to go to the full planning board based on the percentage, because this is, the percentage says 15% of a building, a new building or addition. This is 37% of a building addition. So to me, it tips those scales. So how, as an applicant, how would I know how far I can bend those rules? That's my first question.
I was just going to suggest that you have a great answer for that.
Okay, yeah, so we, the way that that threshold is written is it's as a percentage of the principal building on the site. So when looking at whether or not this application met the threshold for going to the planning board, we looked at the additional size as a percentage of the principal building on the site, which is the wood processing facility. And it didn't meet the it wasn't, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it didn't meet the 15% threshold.
Okay.
Yep.
Certainly that helps. So you've got one on the board for, I believe, next month that Keene Housing is going to do, and that's going to be 60% of the size of Roosevelt School. So how do I know that I can get away with that as an applicant?
I believe what you're referring to is an item that went to the pre-submission meeting this morning. And so the pre-submission meeting is a part of this committee, but it's a separate process where we're just having conversation with the applicant. It's not an approval process, it's not an official, it's a before you submit for planning board or for minor project review, planning committee, minor project committee, you go to pre-submission and we just have a conversation. So it's a different.
So, and I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at. How would I know as an applicant, potentially somebody from out of town or some other business, could consider that you could bend the rules by double or even triple?
So,
I mean, even consider even asking. I mean, I'm just trying to get a feel for how somebody could even think enough to ask. I mean, I would just think that, holy crap, I have to go direct to planning board, and I wouldn't even consider asking. And so part of this process of making it friendly for business, we need to project this out, you know? And there's a second part of this is that how do we keep from making this committee look like they're favoring somebody for doing that over somebody else?
So the part of that is if you have to go to pre-submission, and at pre-submission, that's where we start to make the determination whether, okay, this is a big enough project, it cannot go to minor project, it has to go to planning board, or it can go to some other process because it's smaller, even than minor project would review. And so that's built into the process right now, that investigation, that inquiry into what process you follow as an applicant.
Like I said, I have to clarify, I'm not against this, I think it's going good, I just want to make sure, I just was curious when I read this and, it gets sent out, I was like, this looks a little weird to me, and I just was absolutely curious, so I just wanted to know. Thank you for your time, and thank you for clarifying that. And good luck to Froling, so.
Thank you. I had my mic off. No one else in the audience. I'm going to close the public hearing, and I don't know what the next step is.
I think it requires a gavel.
I think you're gonna have to pound your gavel.
And Mr. Chair, the next step would be board deliberation.
All right. Any deliberation, any discussion from the board about this project?
Mr. Chair, I would like to include a condition within the motion that we're going to eventually contemplate, that the applicant submit updated utility plans to reflect the comments we've had today.
Donna, I hope you're impressed that I wrote that down. I added it by pen while you were talking.
Nice.
I'm learning.
Mr. Chair, I know I'm not voting, but I think in general, I think this project is ready to approve. I didn't see any red flags come up during the discussion, trying to think through all the different standards, and I didn't see anything that wasn't met. I do think they might have some things that they need to work through at the building permit phase, but what I wrote down as notes as potential conditions of approval would be the addition of the wheel stops that Mr. Hagan brought up, potentially requiring a letter to clarify the use of the showroom, although I'm not sure if that could be handled through the building permit process. And then the updated utility plans, and then your comment around showing the rental spaces on the overall site plan that gets signed. I'm fine with all of those conditions, but I'd like to hear people's thoughts about whether or not that letter makes sense to include as a condition with this application, or if it makes more sense with the building permit process, and I'm not entirely sure. So.
Well, I guess the question is, would it affect this body's decision on the application in terms of what use and what fire load you ended up having, right? I think it would just affect the requirements of the construction, whether there's a certain firewall between them or what have you.
That's partially correct. Would also affect access.
Okay.
As well. So there's some concern there.
So
that-
potentially, like, driveways around the building would have to be modified depending on what that is?
Right, and depending on the scale of the processes, right, sometimes if it's in that H2 classification, there need to be explosion distances, and that's very important.
Yeah, so in that case, to answer Mary's question, I think it would affect our vote and probably means that it has to get resolved before we can make a final condition of, final approval.
And question about that, just for my own notes, the letter to clarify uses, not just for the showroom, it's for the whole building. We want to know what's.
Right, this is an additional
Yep.
Thank you. Correct, Mr. Chair. This is, I think they added on this additional use to that building. Before, it was just going to be office and truck repair. Now we're adding a whole nother industrial process to this building that if it's kiln dried dryers in there, just the processing and dust and exhausting and the explosion distance for an H2 use can significantly impact the need for additional access as well as distance to the property lines. And that's something, again, looking at it, we don't know what's going on in there other than wood processing. So maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's more. But I think it would require additional review prior to approval, in my feeling.
Thanks.
And I align my comments with Mr. Higgins as well.
Great, thanks. I guess a question for Mary more than anybody else. In terms of, my question about the rental or the lease spaces, would that be covered under just a general submit a revised site plan? Or do we have to, is it best to enumerate exactly what we want to see on that revised site plan?
In my opinion, I think it's always better for the applicant if we're very clear about exactly what we're asking for. So I think we already have the recommended language for a motion from staff the number 4 on there says submittal of a revised site plan showing the location where Phil's Tree Service will be operating on the site. I would just amend that to say submittal of a revised site plan showing the rental locations on the overall site plan. And that way, the rental locations will be shown on the plan that gets signed by the planning board chair and marked as final. And then I also want to mention, after hearing Mike Hagan and Don Farquhar's comments, I'm wondering if it would make more sense to continue this to the next meeting. And then hopefully in the 2-week interval, we can figure out this issue. And, yeah,
That was actually going to be my motion, is to continue with more information, and we can work with the applicant in order to make an informed decision and help them work through the process if there's any additional things. The one thing I would add to that conditional as well is a needed floodplain permit, because they're doing work in the floodplain. So.
So I guess I'm gonna confess my ignorance in the process here. If we vote to continue, we're not giving them a conditional approval.
That is
So
correct.
what's the difference process-wise of a conditional approval with a final approval at the next meeting versus a continuance?
yeah. So the difference is, if you issue a conditional approval, all of the conditions that you place have to be non-discretionary. And so you have to, staff have to be able to look at it and be able to check off yes or no.
Okay, yeah.
If-
And
if
if there's site plan changes as a result of, the explosion distances and whatnot, that's gonna be hard to enumerate in detail, so. that
Yes.
Sounds like we're continuing.
Yeah, you can, so I should amend that slightly. You can make conditions of approval that are discretionary, but then you have to hold a second public hearing, which requires a second notice, which is not anything that we encourage. So that's
also
typically, we
not
would
business
recommend a
friendly.
continuance.
It's not business friendly.
Yeah, no, it's not business friendly, and it's more hassle for everyone. So,
Makes sense.
yeah.
So I assume, Mr. Chairman, it would be a motion to, a continuance to a date certain. I think that's the proper language. And that date certain would be the date that you choose, right?
I would second that motion, Med.
Well, I would suggest that we ask the applicant if they're able to attend our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from now, on March 16th at 10 a.m. It's another Thursday meeting.
The applicant said yes. Okay,
But-
in that case, if.
Will
sorry,
that
go
give
ahead.
the applicant enough time to resolve these questions?
Come on
come on
up.
up.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with everything here. As far as, like I see you say, the wood processing plant and the kiln dryer and stuff like that, the kiln dryer is still gonna be the same kiln dryer. It's gonna be an additional kiln, but on the other side. So I think I can come up with most of the answers unless, like you said, the explosion distances and stuff provide for new plans, if I understand that correct, right?
Yes, functionally, yes.
Okay,
And I know the fire department and Mr. Hagan's Department of Community Development, we can commit to meeting with you in the interim.
Yes.
We want to front load it and make sure we can get you all squared away in the 2-week
Yeah.
period.
so like I said, as long as we don't have to redesign plans, I don't see any problem for the 2 weeks.
I agree. I think it's just a deeper understanding of the exact use and the processes. And
absolutely.
they're fairly well bounded and categorized. So once we have that initial discussion, we can, we can frame out what we need to get us to the next step.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. If we want to go, I think that motion is great to,
The motion should contain the exact date, time, and location of the continued meeting.
okay, so, March 16th. Wait, I'm not going to say the motion, it's going to be one of you guys, so.
You can say the motion.
I think,
Nothing that prohibits you from doing that.
I believe, Mr. Chair, that Mr. Hagan was volunteering to make
That's
the motion.
right, I heard that.
Thank you, Don. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this meeting until the next regularly scheduled March 16th, 10 o'clock meeting here on the second floor of City Hall, pending further information from the applicant.
Second?
Any discussion, comments? All right, all those in favor of continuing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. And now I've lost my piece of paper. Okay, with that, I guess the only things left to discuss are the upcoming meeting dates, and that is the next meeting, March 16th, 10 a.m. here. And with that, unless there's anything else, I'll close the meeting. Oh,
Mr. Chair,
wait,
can I,
yes. Oh,
can I
boy.
just clarify the upcoming meeting dates? I apologize that they're
No, no.
incorrect on the agenda. So yeah, March 16th at 10 o'clock is going to be our next regularly scheduled meeting.
And then April something, probably.
And then I believe it's April 6th. I just want to clarify. The first minor project meeting of the month is going to be on April 6th at 10, with the pre-submission meeting at 9 o'clock, unless it needs to be pushed to 8:30 if we have enough inquiries that come forward. And then the second meeting will be on April 20th.
Great. Thank you very much, Megan, and thank you, Mary, for looking nervous and getting me to pause. Okay, with that, I close this meening of the Minor Project Review Committee.